I'd like to revisit the topics of education and intelligence. Looking at how we are taught to perceive these things is very important. I know I've talked quite a bit before about these topics, but really there's so much to say about them because it is in the programming of a loving child into a selfish, fearful, and deceitful adult that the entire matrix of suffering is upheld. I've often said, we are born loving and we have to learn to hate. And this is absolutely true. However, it is a greatly simplified statement or reduction of the truth, which is much, much more complex. Being that we are not actually born blank slates. The geneticists would say that DNA gives each child certain probabilities of leanings, which by human reasoning are more or less favorable. The geneticist is not wrong. And if they could actually read and translate the entire genome, not just the tiny, active, third density region, which is that 2 strands out of 12 which are active in the third density body. But if they could, in fact, read the code in its entirety and comprehend its meaning, they would know your soul's entire path, soul fragment, but the entire path through the earth realm, meaning we would know what you did and who you were in what we call past lives. But whether you believe that part or not doesn't even matter, because even the limited scientific contemporary understanding and explanation works. And adding to that is environment, which plays more heavily than any other factor anyways. So even the prenatal environment will greatly affect the development of the body-mind complex or egoic personality, to the effect that a 1-year-old child is anything but a blank slate. However, my earlier statements are broadly true and communicate what I'm trying to get across well. When looked at the amount and effect of trauma, which is received generally in the formative years and later in life, it far outweighs the karmic and prenatal situation of a personality which has made it to adulthood anyways. But it all matters, and if you will observe, a small scar from an injured sapling may actually grow larger with the tree. But I digress. Back to intelligence. Now, if I asked 100 people, what is intelligence? I'd get a wide variety of answers. Many will say it's your IQ number and think that explains it perfectly. Some will say, well, it's how fast you can learn. Some will say it's how much you know. In truth, the line between wisdom and intelligence is not only blurred in most people's minds, but in reality, it doesn't exist, as both definitions are man-made attempts to explain our own limited perceptions, which are all subjective anyways. But most people would agree that some people are smart and some not so much. And that in itself is quite a limited perception. For example, we know if I look at 10 people and judge them on their strength, I would have to measure multiple different areas of the body and put them through various tests to determine. And some would be stronger in one place, but weaker in others, and vice versa. So it would be hard to say who is actually stronger. And then a broader measurement like health would be even harder to quantify and take more exhaustive testing. So what I'm saying is the idea that one number can represent how intelligent someone is and actually tell you anything useful is basically ludicrous. Then we most certainly have to look at the actual IQ test. And if you do, you will discover its founder, psychologist Alfred Binet, was a racist, and what they are actually testing for, in my opinion, is a type of rational focus or particular type of mental arrangement. Not to mention that it has been proven irrefutably that IQ changes over time and due to environmental factors. So the idea that a test in childhood on 1 or 2 days determines the intelligence of a person throughout their entire life is nonsensical and upholds racist and classist separations and labels. Because the children with better homes, less stress, more loving families, and more opportunities will definitely test better. And so then it appears to everyone, the kids, the adults, and all of society, that minority children are less intelligent than white children. I tested in the genius level on those IQ tests, and I can tell you I was much stupider in many other ways than kids whose IQs were much lower. Because, of course, there are many types of intelligence. I say often that it is the most intelligent among us that are making the biological weapons and the nuclear bombs and figuring out how to not help humanity, but exploit it. And of course, I mean intelligent with air quotes. So not only have many accepted this lie of IQ for humans, but scientists have gone about labeling and classifying all the other life forms on Earth according to their own limited definitions of intelligence. But I contend that they don't actually understand or comprehend the intelligence of a rose or a tree. Each animal has their own intelligence, just as each human has theirs. Now, part of wisdom and intelligence, in my opinion, is the ability to understand and work with other types of intelligences in this world and eventually in the universe. I have spoken how this coldly rational, logical intelligence that dominated Europe, and through the agency of colonization and white supremacy, spread like a plague to the whole world. That this type of intelligence is the result of a personality gone insane, completely out of balance to the masculine. That women's intelligence has been suppressed and attacked to such an extent that most women have forgotten they even have it at all, judging themselves instead solely against the masculine model, and even worse, according to an arbitrary test designed by an emotionally suppressed, racist, and misogynist from nearly a century ago. Once again, I will state that love is the most intelligent energy. The loving stance is the most intelligent stance. The loving position is the most intelligent position. But if you believe you are separate from all those around you, and that your prosperity is independent from all those around you, it's possible to convince yourself logically that it is good to hurt others, that it is good to make and use something like a nuclear weapon, forgetting and disregarding and not even comprehending the true cost of this action. But the loving heart, in its intelligence, in its wisdom, would never make that choice. If women ran the world, war would be over in 100 years, and yet man and man's intelligence is upheld as the pinnacle of creation, instead of the virus it has actually become. So then you can see that the point of the education system is classification and indoctrination, that the free thinkers and the soul-centered are excluded, that the poor and impoverished are labeled stupid and blamed for the inequality of society, that those whom can see outside the box, whom can see through the thin veil of their whitewashed history, be identified and labeled ADHD or defiant, that they be placed on medications or punished into conformity.